The Louisiana Ragin Cajuns hosting the Marshall Thundering Herd for the 2024 Sun Belt Championship game. It's the Lockdown Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, here's the plan. The plan is to go through the ball games that happened. There's a big story that's happening in the Sun Belt we're going to have to get to, and so we may not get to all of the games until Tuesday's episode. All right, I owe everybody that. I understand. But there's obviously one big looming story, or two, as the case may be, in the Sun Belt right now. All right, and so we're going to go over the Cajuns and Marshall. Marshall will be first. We'll get to Georgia Southern beating App State. And how about Coastal Carolina going bowling? That's 8 teams going bowling, and ODU had a big win on the road. So there's a lot to go over here. But let's start off with the Marshall Thundering Herd. And, I do have a 9-to-5 job, if you will. And so I have to get up early, and as it turns, work out, but then get to work. I leave my place by 7:45 in the morning. So it is tough to stay up and watch ball games that you don't know when the end is going to come. So I did. I went to bed. It was 17-0 Marshall. I was watching a game earlier in the day that was 21-0. I should have known better. And Marshall comes back to win 35-33 in a game that they had no business winning. And so in double overtime, and Alonzo Barnett III made a awful throw, not quite a pick six throw, but really close enough, although it was a pick six. It's from the hash to the far sideline, and that got Marshall back into the ball game. He was in between the hashes, although maybe a little bit closer to the far hash. But he threw the ball way too late. He waited for the wide receiver to turn around to look at him, and he should have thrown it way before that. And the defensive back was just sitting there waiting for that throw to be made. It was just way too late. And so that got Marshall back into the game. If you didn't see the instant-ish recap from Sunday, and you didn't see the Marshall ball game on how this went down, it was 24-17 JMU. JMU is leading the ball game by 7 and had numerous chances to put this one away. This all happens in the same set of downs. In fact, this happens inside JMU territory. 3rd and 9, bad snap by Marshall. Braylon Braxton, quarterback, retrieves the ball. For some reason, throws it up for grabs into the end zone. JMU drops a would-be interception. Now, there were 2 JMU defenders there. One guy reached for it. Maybe he tipped it, and that wasn't very much. But one of the better JMU defensive backs just drops the football. It would have been JMU up by 7 with the ball on their own 20. So that happens. Next play, Marshall goes for a fake field goal with the play clock stopped on 0, of course. Now, if you follow college football, and I had the benefit on a radio show having a referee, it's really not 40 seconds. It's 41. So what they do is they're looking at the clock, and then they look at the ball, and then they look at the clock again. And if it's not snapped by that point in time, then they blow the whistle dead. Or maybe the other way around, right? They're looking at the clock, and if it gets to 0 and then they look, then it's snapped. So it's usually about 41 seconds, all right, or 40 and a half. The play clock was absolutely at 0, at least on TV. And so, Reese Verhoff runs for the first down, and Marshall is set up 1st and goal. All right, Ethan Payne, running back, fumbles on the first play of that set of downs, and Braylon Braxton either recovered it or he didn't. It certainly looked like he recovered it, but I'm not sure he had possession. He absolutely got stripped later on, but the referees gave it back to Marshall. JMU does not 1, but 2 goal line stands. But on 4th and 1, Braylon Braxton takes it in himself, gets a game-tying touchdown, and they're off to the races. JMU would eventually not get the 2-point conversion in the double overtime. Marshall did. They go on to win it. Okay. So we'll unbelievable ball game. And the other big story is, and it's hanging over his head. You know what? We'll get to that now because that would be the segue. We'll do the Cajuns a little bit later. They had a big win over ULM. All right. Let me see if I can set this up. I meant to set it up because I want you guys to see it. If I need to pick this up, let's see here. Upload file. Recents. No, I can't. So, all right. Well, it's not here. All right. It's Luke Reese's tweet. All right. That's what I wanted to show you. But you can find it. Luke Reese, not that common of a name. He is the Marshall Thundering Herd beat writer. And so the big thing that is hanging over Marshall's program is that Charles Huff isn't coming back. All right. Not one, but two reports of him leaving. One by, is it Super Talk Mississippi? Like these guys, this is a news talk station. They just happen to have sports talk in the afternoon. And they are reporting that Huff is going to Southern Miss. And we talked about that throughout last week, right? That was the big story. And, you know, if there's no noise, then the coaches aren't doing well. And we had a lot of coach speak, a little yada, yada, yada. Okay. So let me see here. Sports Talk Mississippi. Because these guys put it out there, and it is Sports Talk Mississippi. It's a big time show, but I believe it's on a news talk station. So they don't put anything out there just to put out there. They are not clickbait. All right. And so they put it out there. And there's one more report of it too, that Charles Huff is going to accept the Southern Miss job. Okay. So now I don't have it up here. I meant to do it, but I will read Luke Creasy's tweet that he put out there. All right. So this is Luke Creasy. He's the beat writer for Herald Dispatch covering the Thundering Herd. Okay. So he spoke with Charles Huff. Thanks for reaching out, Luke. I have not accepted any jobs. We returned to Huntington at 6 a.m. Sunday morning. I've been working on preparing this team for our first Sun Belt Championship opportunity. That's where my sole focus is, and I'm looking forward to a great week of practice and a chance to go make history at Marshall University. Okay. Couple things it doesn't say there. A, it doesn't say he's coming back to Marshall. And B, it doesn't say he's not taking the Southern Miss job. It just says he hasn't agreed to it yet or signed a contract, per se. That's what I would think he's trying to say. Okay. Sounds like to me he's going. That I don't know anything. I did talk to Luke, but all he told me was that he had spoken with Charles Huff and he put out that statement. So we can go back, ironically, to the Sun Belt Championship that Billy Napier and the Cajuns played in Billy Napier's last year. And Billy was interviewing for jobs the year before. I believe Auburn when Brian Harsin got the job, South Carolina when Shane Beamer got the job, and Mississippi State when Mike Leach got the job. And none of those worked out. Some of that had to do with the team Billy Napier knew was coming back. But then he's winning a Sun Belt. He's playing for a Sun Belt championship, and things move fast. And he got the Florida job. But because he had such a good relationship with everybody there, we're going to coach the Sun Belt championship game, and then we're going to move on. He may have taken a few more coaches and players than first intimated, but nonetheless, win the championship. And I got to go coach Florida. And as it turns out, Mike Desimo takes over for the Cajuns. The ironic part is, the Cajuns played and beat Charles Huff and Marshall in the New Orleans Bowl. And so it doesn't feel like that's what's going on here in Marshall. Charles Huff is denying, so to speak, that he has accepted a job. And yet, Sports Talk Mississippi, after the denial, went back to their sources, which is coming from Marshall. Again, it doesn't take a whole lot of genius to figure out who's talking at the Marshall thing. All right. I believe they said the Marshall athletic department. No. Someone doesn't want Charles Huff there, and they keep on saying, yeah, he's leaving. So this whole thing is hanging over it. I would say this about the players, and we're already going late. So this is going to be a long segment and a long episode. So hang tight. Here's the thing, and these kids understand. First of all, they're on his football team. They know he doesn't have a contract for 2025. All right. Guy has a 1-year-old, among other kids, and a wife. He needs to have a job. I don't know when the contract would end, but it's probably going to be December 8th is when the contract is going to come to a close. He needs a job. So if he interviewed with Southern Miss and or accepted it, the kids would understand. Now, it would be unfortunate for the freshmen and sophomores who were hoping to play under Charles Huff at Marshall, may either stay at Marshall or may transfer somewhere else or may go with him to Southern Miss if he gets that job. All right. But they would understand that more than most because he doesn't have a contract. And he'd be like, guys, I gotta be in the portal. They don't want me. They're not offering me a contract. We haven't gone to not 1, not 2, not 3. We've gone to 4 bowl games since I've been here. And now we're playing for a Sun Belt championship. I still can't get an extended contract. So again, I don't know anything other than what I'm reading. And again, Luke Creasy told me that all he did was get a statement from Charles Huff. No one seems to know anybody. I reached out to somebody who covers Southern Miss. They don't seem to know anything either. Except to me, it just feels like he's going to Southern Miss. All right. Then what does Marshall do? Then we start this whole thing over again with Marshall. A couple of guys that one guy got the job done on Saturday, which was Ricky Ronnie and ODU going into Jonesboro and kind of, I don't want to say ruin Arkansas State's season. It may be their first loss at home, though. But it ruins what could have been a 9-win year for Arkansas State. Will that save Ricky Ronnie's job? Was it even on the hot seat? I don't know. And then you have Sean Clark with App State, and obviously a lot of stuff off the field having nothing to do with the football program. May have issues there. So again, Marshall is getting ready to play a Sun Belt championship game. They're going to go to Louisiana as the Cajuns, we're ahead of them in 4 computer rankings that nobody's ever heard of until we get to this tiebreaker. And you have this thing hanging over his head. We tried to get him to come on. Obviously, he's very busy getting ready for the game. And he's got a press conference on Monday, got a press conference on Tuesday, and he's got Wednesday, and he's doing another one on Friday. So he's doing plenty of media availability. Just can't seem to come on my show. But it is what it is. He's certainly going to be asked at all 4 of those instances. He's going to be asked because this is not much of a secret anymore. It is hanging over the whole program's head. Certainly plenty of good content for me. I do find it is fascinating because you'd have to find somebody else who's changing jobs and staying within the same conference. That is fascinating to me. That is fascinating. All right, let's take a time out. We'll see how much we can run through the ball games. We had to do it. There's no way to segue to, the Cajuns beat ULM. We'll get back to Charles Huff in another part of the episode or later on in another episode. But that's where we are. He will face, I think, Sunbelt media later today. I think local media on Tuesday. Said he had national media on Wednesday and then has another presser on Friday. So, and again, it's somewhere in there. He's got to get his team ready to play a football game. All right, so let's take a timeout. We will come back. We'll talk Cajuns, ULM, and see what other games we can get to as well. Do that right after I tell you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, Marshall will face the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns Saturday, December 7th, 7:30 p.m., 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. It is on ESPN. This is a national televised audience. That's big time for the Sun Belt. Cajuns went into ULM and a little bit sloppy to begin with. They did fall behind 3-0. They missed an extra point. Hopefully that does not hurt Kenny Almendarez's status as the Lou Groza Award. Should win that as the best place kicker in America. ULM actually takes the lead 10-6. Cajuns take it back 13-10, and Cajuns did a good job of holding ULM to a field goal to end the half. It was 13-13, and ULM, that was as close as they got. Cajuns put a touchdown on the board on the first possession. Again, ULM held to a field goal, 20-16. Cajuns make it 27-16, and then they added Kenny Almendarez a field goal, make it 30-16. ULM does pull within the one score, but the Cajuns are able to, I'd say, run out the clock, but instead they scored a touchdown to make it 37-23. One of the guys in this ball game, again, as I'd mentioned with South Alabama, and we're mentioning with the Cajuns have a full backfield coming back as well. You hope Ahmad Hardy comes back to Monroe. He is spectacular. 28 carries, 172 yards, scored a touchdown, did everything he could. Aiden Armenta, just 50% passing, more yards than usual, 168 yards, but he throws 3 interceptions, did have a touchdown pass. But Ahmad Hardy is, tough for a team that didn't get to a bowl game to be your player of the year. But don't be surprised if he's the offensive player of the year. I think Mike Green will probably be the player of the year. I guess they could give it to Ben Woldridge still, but out of sight, out of mind type of deal. Gio Lopez didn't have a particularly good game to finish up with. Alonzo Barnett with a pick 6. So we'll see who gets it moving forward. But don't be surprised if Mike Green gets it, because we said Marshall wins that division, and he's the one who sticks out on their team. 16 sacks is ridiculous. So anyways, the Cajuns did what they had to do. All right, Chandler Fields, 17 out of 26, 2 touchdowns. He threw an interception early on in the ball game. Zylan Perry came back. He had a big ball game, almost 8 yards a carry, 19 carries, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bill Davis complimented him, 17 carries, 78 yards, and a touchdown. And again, here's the thing about the Cajuns, all right, because they don't have anybody. They don't have one guy that's making all the catches, and it makes it really difficult to defend. 17 guys caught a pass on Saturday. And I'm not even sure if Jacob Bernard has ever led the team in receiving yards. 3 catches, 42 yards. Robert Williams, 2 catches, 37 yards. Lance Legendre, 4 catches, 34 yards. Harvey Broussard, 2 catches, 32 yards. Terrence Carter, 2 catches, 27 yards. Tavion Smith, 2 catches, 11 yards. He had one of the touchdowns, and Legendre also caught the touchdown. Bill Davis had a catch, and the tight end, Caden Jensen, had a catch. But Robert Williams is probably going pro. He's going to come back, though, at least one more year. And Terrence Carter should have a shot at going pro. Zylan Perry may have a shot at going pro eventually, and we'll see if Bill Davis does. All right. But they are just well-rounded. Should say Monroe had a bunch of different guys catching pass too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 caught passes. That seems like the same thing for the Cajuns. But the Cajuns just do a great job of spreading it around. You just can't cover one guy. Eventually, their defense made a couple of stops and never really in danger of losing the game. And so they get to host Marshall, which we found out was it right around lunchtime Sunday afternoon? It wasn't too late when we did find out that that the Cajuns were hosting, but a couple of those computer rankings that nobody's ever heard of came out, and the Cajuns were ahead. I think Marshall finished ahead in one of them, but only by like 2 spots, and it's a cumulative deal with one of those Sunbelt tiebreakers. So Marshall would have had to been way out in front, and I guess the big deal was, they would get more of a bump from their win over JMU than the Cajuns would from ULM. All right, but it wasn't enough of a bump, so the Cajuns will get them. All right, so the Cajuns get them, and so the Cajuns and Marshall playing on this Saturday, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central on ESPN. All right. Meanwhile, let's do Georgia Southern and App State. And good ball game. Let me see. I think it was 29-20, your final score. I believe Georgia Southern scored late, just like the Cajuns did. And Georgia Southern finishes 8-4. They had a shot at the division title, but they ended up losing to Troy. App State, it was just not their year. They had chances in this ball game, and it just wasn't their year. They actually not took a lead, but pulled within 2. They scored a touchdown. They actually got a 3-and-out and had the ball down by 2, but couldn't mount a drive. And then Georgia Southern ends up running out the clock basically and putting them up by 9. A couple things happened. Well, one thing happened in this game, and I want to see where it was. I'm not going to name the player because it doesn't matter. It annoys me because the players, and we hear this a lot from football coaches, when you're selfish and you're playing for yourself. It actually happened in the Syracuse game. All right, Mary Cristobal getting a lot of blame for Miami losing that one. Not hearing a lot of blame from going from first to goal inside the 10 to second and goal around like the 23 because a Miami player got in front of a Syracuse player and got a 15-yard penalty. Not sure it should have been a penalty, but don't say anything. And that's what happened in this App State Georgia Southern game. I don't know if App State would have stopped them, but it was going to be 3rd and 2 at the Georgia Southern 47 with 1:48 to go. And one of the App State players basically slapped the Georgia Southern player because he blocked him a little bit later, right? After the whistle. Not much, but a little bit. So he's disrespected, slaps the player, 15-yard penalty. That basically ended the ball game. Took it into his own hands. Again, I'm not saying that App State would have stopped him. I'm not saying App State would have won. But once you pull out a 15-yard penalty with less than 2 minutes to go on 3rd down, you let all your teammates down. You did. Yeah, that's just bad. But hey, you were disrespected for about 2.5 seconds. So, and then I don't understand what the whole slapping is of guys with helmets on because you can hurt your hand more than you're going to hurt them. Nonetheless, Georgia Southern, I think, had a good year. Let's see where they were picked to finish. Let's see here. Sunbelt Coaches Poll. Football. Where were they picked? I'm not sure where we picked them. Georgia Southern was picked 4th. They were picked App State, JMU, Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern. Marshall was picked 5th, by the way. ODU and Georgia State. So Marshall finishes 1st. Georgia Southern finishes 2nd. It's a nice year. Again, you're going to tell me that Georgia Southern standards are championships, and I understand. Tough to, again, not everyone can win at the same time. So Clay Helton seems to be having the program heading in the right direction. All right. Going to another bowl game, can win 9 games this year. Going to rue that loss to Troy. I get it. And that'll be something to build on for next season. We'll see what App State does. Are they starting all over again with a new coach? Who do they go to? Troy Brown is Neil Brown, not Troy Brown. Neil Brown, sorry. Neil Brown, who coached Troy. He got let go by West Virginia. I figure he's going to be a hot commodity. Did a real good job with Troy, right? Went in there and beat LSU in Baton Rouge. That was how he got some national exposure. Also, he's still really young. And he should have a good shot at getting another job. It just didn't go his way at West Virginia. So he's available if he wants to come back to the Sun Belt. Of course, either Marshall or Southern Miss is going to be open that come next week as well. So we'll see if he wants to go to one of those schools, if he wants to be back in the Sun Belt. So we'll see. I guess I don't think anybody else is going to move on. We should mention, and this is a whole nother episode, what the Cajuns are going to do. I think they have to extend Mike Desimo, obviously, and they may get a break somewhere along the way because they got Desimo. I'm not sure he's going to go to a Tulane type deal because this feels like a pit stop for John Summerall. He may go. He's waiting for Kentucky to open up is what he's waiting to do. But the Cajuns just may have Mike Desimo for as long as they want him. Now, if someone comes along offering $5 million, obviously he's got to take it, right? That's $5 million a year for 4 or 5 years. That's going to set your family up. But he just may be in for the long haul for the Cajuns, and that kind of is a good thing when you can build a program. All right. They did not have a lot of guys leave through the portal last year. Who knows what's going to happen this season? They had a couple of key guys leave, but not a whole lot. They didn't get a whole lot of guys in the portal. I think there's a big class leaving, and they're going to have to fill some holes. All right. All right. Let's take a timeout. We will come back. Coastal Carolina, they're going bowling. All right. Back-to-back years under Tim Beck. And ODU with a big win on the road against Arkansas State. We'll do that when we come back after I tell you about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. That makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You get those priority Game Time picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Then you get the all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You get the seat views, get the panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and you get that lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. That's Locked On College. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Coastal Carolina, I got this one right. I didn't get too much else right. Oh, I did pick Marshall to win, by the way. Jamie was fair. I got Marshall right. I said Cajuns were going to win, but ULM was going to cover. And they probably should have, but it got away from them at the end. I had... I think I had Georgia Southern beating them. I got that one. I got more than a couple. I got more than a couple right. All right. Anyways, Coastal Carolina goes into Georgia State and beats the Panthers. Up and down season for Coastal Carolina. 48-27 was your final score. Ethan Vasco, really solid ball game. 13 out of 17, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Does throw an interception. Christian Washington carried it well, 20 carries, 124 yards, and a touchdown. Vasco also ran for 13 times, 68 yards, and a touchdown. Seneca McKee had 5 catches for 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. For Georgia State, Christian Veyer, 15-26, 205 yards, and 4 interceptions. So, unfortunately, Zach Gibson is banged up, did not play. And obviously the interceptions coming back to our Georgia State. Tim Beck's crew goes 6-6. They finished 3-5 in the conference. Del McGee does get the one win in the conference, going on the road and beating Texas State of all teams. They finished 1-7 in the Sun Belt, 3-9 overall. I'm not sure if we saw some growth from Georgia State. They took a long time to, try to build on that win over Vanderbilt, which at the time we didn't think was a big deal. Then it kind of ended up being, but they kind of got hammered by Georgia Southern. They lost by 7 to Old Dominion. They lost on the road by 2 scores to Marshall. They lost on the road to App State. They went to UConn. They battled against App State and UConn, got blown out by JMU. Had a chance against Arkansas State, but lost by 7 at home. And then surprisingly, they went out, and this score was not nearly as close as the game would indicate, 52-44. Or say that backwards. The game was not as close as the score would indicate, 52-44 Georgia State. And then this game wasn't particularly close either, 48-27. They need to figure out who the quarterback is. I should mention Ted Hurst had a fantastic year. He's going to be first team All Sun Belt. He may be the best receiver in the Sun Belt. 8 catches, 131 yards, did not get the touchdown. Dorian Fleming did get the touchdown in the air. But Ted Hurst is outstanding for Georgia State. So we'll see. They're having great recruiting success. We'll see what happens with the portal. Off the top of my head, Joey Aguilar is leaving. I think J.C. French is still young. He's coming back. Ethan Vasco could be coming back. We'll see what happens at Marshall. that whole thing is nobody may be coming back at Marshall. We'll see about that. So we'll see if Georgia State, can figure things out. ODU has their quarterback in Colton Joseph. There you go. So they could be getting better. That's if Ricky Ronnie comes back. I presume he's coming back, but don't know otherwise. So we shall see. Again, a lot of coaches were let go on Sunday, and more will be let go on Monday. That's what they call that, is Black Monday after Black Friday. So a lot of coaches are let go. Interesting that's the same thing. Like Black Friday is the big day for sales, and Black Monday is the big day for coaches getting fired. Those two things should not be similar. Not at all. All right, so Coastal Carolina is going bowling. We'll see if they get that going in the right direction. Again, an up and down year for Coastal Carolina, and it could end up on a high note. They went out to Hawaii, got a bowl win. You go, you all of a sudden finish 7-6. I don't think there's a huge difference between going 6-7 and 7-6. Some people do, but it's certainly go in the offseason with a win. That makes you feel much better, and you got the early signing period coming up. So we'll see where they go. Obviously, all the bowl games will be announced, I believe, a week from yesterday, right? Isn't it always Sunday night after the championship bowl games? Or after the conference championship games. All right. The other game I wanted to talk about was Old Dominion going to Jonesboro and taking down Arkansas State. I did not see that one coming. I had Arkansas State in this one. Joseph got hurt, and Quinn Hickenel. Is that how you say his name? I probably should be able to pronounce that. It's not that difficult. But a true freshman, I believe. Quinn Hickenel goes in there and runs the offense and had 4 touchdowns, 2 in the air and 2 on the ground. In fact, Joseph did not play at all. My mistake. Hickenel was 9 out of 12, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns. Carried the ball 19 times, 206 yards and 2 touchdowns. Aaron Young ran for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Jalen Rayner, pretty good. 22 out of 36, 261 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Zach Wallace, 15 carries, 89 yards, and a touchdown. Corey Rucker, another outstanding receiver, 8 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. But, they were just shell-shocked a little bit. Down 14-0, down 21-7. It was 21-14 at half. ODU was up top. ODU took the opening drive of the second half for a touchdown, 27 14. Arkansas State responded with a touchdown, but then ODU scored, making it 33-21. Arkansas State lost it on downs. ODU scored a touchdown, and that basically put the ball game away. Touchdown, punt. But by that time, it was 40-29 with 10 minutes left to go in the game. And Arkansas State has this great drive, first down and 10 at their own 17 with 10:37 to go. It took 14 plays to line up for a field goal. Ouch. Yeah. And then ODU ran out the clock, 6 minutes, didn't kick it and didn't give the ball back. So that's a great job by Old Dominion. All right. And Old Dominion, again, one of those woulda, coulda, shoulda deals. Again, despite it not being a close game, still a one-score game. They won by 8. But, that 23-19 loss over South Carolina could have been so much more. They fell to East Carolina. That's disappointing. All right, getting blown out by Virginia Tech, that is what it is. You had a shot. You were up by 10 against Coastal Carolina, lose by 8. You did eke out a win against Georgia State. Really impressive wins against Texas State and Georgia Southern. And then the season kind of turned back to the way it ended up being when you lost on the road to App State. Because now you'd be going bowling. JMU, you lost by 3. Marshall, you lost by 7. Always competitive, right? How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 one-score games. 9 one-score games. And obviously, when your record is 5-7, you're not going to be very good in them. 0-2, 1-2, 1-3. 2-3, 2-4, 2-5, 2-6. I got 3-6 overall. All right, at least that adds up to 9. So again, I hope Ricky Ronnie is coming back. He's trying to build something at Old Dominion. They certainly have their quarterbacks. If that is the case, that offense seems to be doing better. They did miss Jason Henderson all year with a knee injury, so. They'll have to fill some holes defensively, but I'm not sure that there's going to be a change there, but we'll see. You never know what people are thinking. You better have somebody in mind who wants a job. It's not necessarily a very easy job. All right. And I think Ricky Ronnie likes being there and wants to build something at Old Dominion. All right. That episode went extremely long. We do have to get to Texas State, the only one we didn't get to. We didn't get to Texas State and South Alabama 45-38. We'll get into that on Tuesday, but I guess I did most of the other ball games. Again, we're trying to line up guests between Lafayette and Marshall. We'll get to basketball a little bit this week as well. Somewhere along the way, we'll talk recruiting. The transfer portal is going to open wide, and so there's not a lack of content to be discussing. And at the top of it is Sunbelt Championship game and who's going to be coaching Marshall in 2024 and who's going to be coaching Southern Miss in 2024. We'll see if it's the person that everybody thinks is going to move from one school to the next. He may not. We shall see. All right, we're really taking off. We had a bunch of new subscribers, almost 1,670 over the last few days. We just had a banner week with that. The views are continuing to set records. Really appreciate that. We've had 3 consecutive record-setting months, so we're looking forward to having a great December. Know the holidays are upon us. We're doing a little bit of traveling, but I'm not going to miss any episodes. I don't believe, barring any issues traveling, that is. Thank you again. All right. Really appreciate all of your support. You've been watching and listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day,